Despite the fact that I don't play tank, I still wanted this skin really bad. I mean, look at it. It's so cool. Now when I go into bear form twice per key, I'm gonna look cool. For consumables, I ended up using a Gluttonous Feast. I used this Unbridled Fury cheese potion. This thing is like definitely really important and ended up being a huge portion of my damage. And then I also ended up using drums and Augment Rune and Shadow Core Oil and a Shadowlands Flask. For talents, I went with Brambles. Using Barkskin and having it reflect damage helps deal with the small adds really well. Wild Charge, this saves me over and over again. Whenever I'm about to get knocked off, I charge on. That's really clutch. Balance Affinity, I spend pretty much all of P1 in Boomkin form, and I open with Heart of the Wild to squeeze as much damage out as I can. Galactic Guardian, all those extra Moonfires means more Unbridled Fury procs, and the 3 times increased damage Moonfires are really strong as well. You want to be spamming that whenever you get a proc, clearing the proc out, getting the damage in. This will give me extra Barkskin during P2. This ends up being really helpful as well. And then Rend and Tear, this is kind of standard, just increasing damage and decreasing damage taken. First, I'm going to take a look at my gear. I ended up just socketing as much agility as possible. I picked whatever items I had that had sockets and just went with those. I used a scale from last tier that I hadn't fully upgraded, but the scale was like really helpful. Just having that extra absorb was really crucial. And then I ended up getting Pathfinder in BFA, and as a consequence was revered or exalted with Mechagon. So I ended up using this cheese, and it ended up being pretty helpful. This beam in the opener was really good. So for my opener, I always start with the Mechagon Trinket into Heart of the Wild, into Star Surge, and then get my dots going. I end up using Typhoon for the first kick, just so I can spend more time in Moonkin form. I want to be getting into an Eclipse, and then using my Star Surge on cooldown. I want to try to fit as many Star Surges into the Heart of the Wild as I can. I also want to be clearing the Galactic Guardian procs. I also will regrowth myself at least once before these horrors spawn. That will snap their threat to me, and then I can go back to DPSing Varus. For the eyes, I just give them like one Moonfire. I think this is like pretty standard. All of the other bears have been doing this as well. Fit one last Star Surge in. I probably could have fit 2 more in, but I was like a little slow clearing out the horrors. So not ideal, but not the end of the world either. So with the horrors, you want to interrupt their cast right after the cast finishes and they start channeling. If you use Disorienting Roar, you can kick them and then they won't recast again, but you have to make sure you land the roar right after the cast finishes and the channel starts. You can do it before you take any damage as well, so that's definitely worth doing. Again, using Star Surge on cooldown, getting in, applying 1 Thrash, using Barkskin, and you can really see the Brambles take effect here. They're like taking a decent amount of damage while they're meleeing me, and that's huge. I also get a Galactic Guardian proc in the middle there, and I'm trying to spend all of those on Varus. My goal is to clear Varus out as quickly as possible so I can minimize the number of Infernals that I have out. Here I charge in and then quickly turn to face the eye. If you're not facing the eye, when their cast ends, they will knock you off the platform. So here, just gathering these guys up. You want to start P2 with at least 1 orb on the ground, ideally 2, and that's usually enough. So you don't have to be too stingy with the orbs, especially early on. You can feel free to use them, but I I end up using one there just to clear out and cancel Varus's cast as well. Now Varus is very low. I'm just going to be pumping, baiting the frontal, and now we're on to Cruel. So I immediately pop Berserk, the Unbridled Fury Potion, and Drums. I'm like a little too far away from an orb here, so I end up using Disorienting Roar. And I know the Annihilate's coming, so I'm building up Rage and then just spamming Iron Bark for the first Annihilate. I end up switching my focus to Cruel so that I can be targeting other things. Again, sometimes I'll end up dotting the Infernals, and that ends up being pretty helpful. You want to try to clear them out quickly if possible. Here is Iron Fur and Barkskin for the second Annihilate. Almost get knocked off, end up using Wild Charge to get back in. Another thing that helped me a lot actually is using Goblin Gliders. I definitely had a couple really close calls where Goblin Gliders ended up helping me continue progression, but I end up needing to use Survival Instincts here. Here I ended up spamming my Cyclotronic trinket, but it was on cooldown. Here I use my Stampeding Roar, and another orb spawns in like a perfect location. And at this point I have one more orb. These guys are off in Narnia, and I can just chill over here. They come in, clear them out, and there goes Cruel. If this was pre-nerf, I would have had one more Survival Instincts and Barkskin for the final Annihilate, but I'm not a tank player, so I had to wait till they nerfed it. I'm pretty hyped. I spent more time than I care to admit trying to work through this, and as a non-tank player, it was definitely not easy. Like planning all the cooldowns and getting the feeling for how long they take to return and all of that was not very easy, but it was pretty fun, and who knows, maybe I'll play some Bear Keys. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching a Resto Druid do a tank challenge, and if you enjoy this content and want to see more Resto Druid gameplay, then consider subscribing and joining the Discord. We've got a bunch of people there hanging out and chatting about Resto Druid and Mythic Plus, and starting to do some VOD reviews for folks in the community. So if that kind of thing interests you, hop on over and come hang out. Good luck out there.